All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Mitchell. On this show, I do my best to help you get out of your own way and create sustainable results that are a lot easier than most people have made it in their entire lives. And if you are a first time listener, thank you so much for being here. If you're a long time listener, thank you so much for being here and continue to support the show. I appreciate it very much. And we have today's my second kind of real talk episode where it's a kind of quick little episode that I like just kind of jumping into some sort of theme I want to share, or just a little quick nugget that's going to help you wherever you're at. And ultimately, this is a conversation that I have a lot with. Well, not a lot, I want to say, but this is probably one of the hardest parts about my job is talking about this stuff. So, without further ado, let's kind of jump in and you kind of start guessing what I'm going to talk about in this episode by looking at the title. You're either in or you're out. And the ultimate thing I want people to know is you are not wrong by understanding that you're either in or you're out. So many people, they get discouraged when they are not consistent or when they go against themselves, and deep down they don't really want this. They don't want what they say they want. They think they want it. The idea of having the goals that they want is what is where their head is. They want the idea of it, but the actual process and commitment to change isn't fully there yet. So let me just kind of talk about, I mean, I made an episode about this a little while ago, talking about or highlighting why what you want doesn't matter. Because what we say and what we do are two very different things. And one of the hardest things about my job, one of the most difficult and frustrating aspects of my job, is the old cliche: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And like, when I, as a coach, and I'm a coach who wants my clients to succeed for their benefit, not just my own. Like, there's a lot of coaches in this space that want to point and say, look what I helped this person do. It's like, I could care less. Like, if I didn't have to show up on social media, if I didn't have to make this podcast, I wouldn't. I don't want the accolades. I would just want the person in front of me to be the person that they know they can be and they want to be. But there's a lot of things in our lives that really makes it hard to remember why all of this even matters to begin with. And it could make it really easy to put that into perspective, like, well, it's just easier to stay where I'm at. And it makes this whole process easier, even though you're uncomfortable with where you're at and you don't like the results that you're seeing. If we're always at odds with ourselves, if we're always fighting ourselves tooth and nail, it's never going to get any better. You're only going to make the situation harder. And some people, they'll continue to fight this process until until they until they can't anymore. Essentially, they never feel quite okay with anything that they do. They're always second guessing, or they're always or they always feel guilty about their decisions. But ultimately, we need to get abundantly clear at this point. Or we need to sit here and say, what do we want? And do we actually want the things that we say we do? Or are we just chasing something that is not possible? Two examples come to mind. I work with people who struggle a lot with the mental side of losing weight, improving their health. They are very quick to jump to conclusions, to get down on themselves, to strive for perfection that isn't real, and if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And they get very discouraged, and they tear themselves down very easily because they don't allow themselves to mess up. They don't allow themselves the space to learn these very important mental lessons that are what leads to sustainable results over the long run. They want the results now, and then they'll figure out how to live their life in the meantime. And that's not how it works when you have a lot of issues on the mental side of this. You need to learn how to deal with the mental side alongside doing the mechanical focus, the mechanical pieces. If you don't combine them, if you don't allow them to exist in the same space, you're only making this harder. All right. So here's one example of a client of mine who's had a hard time. Life has really knocked her on her face, to the point where, like, a tornado hit her land, and caused a lot of stress. She's a mom. She's struggling with a relationship process, and there's so many things in her life. Her job is super stressful and frustrating. So many things in her life that are just weighing her down, and has put her to a point where she felt stuck, like she couldn't break free. She can't do anything about the situation, and she hates that. And so anytime she wants to establish control with her health. And a big problem that we all believe is that we have control over our body weight, but we don't have control. We have influence. And we don't have a lot of control in the situation that we're stressed out. And we have this perception that we can control our body weight, but we only have influence and we don't see the results that we want. Well, now that's just adding fuel to the fire of all the stress that we're dealing with. And this client of mine, she's gone over and over how much she wants the change. She wants to feel comfortable in her skin again. Yet what she says does not align with what she does. Meaning she'll tell me she's willing to make change, but then we'll talk. We'll go over. And it's like same old, same old. I'm not eating very much. I don't feel very good. I'm not making the time for my workouts. But then she'll say she's willing to change, but nothing is actually changing. And we've had to go over and remind her that, okay, we can't do everything. We can't go to the gym as much as we want to. We can't be as ideally as consistent as we want to with the food. So we have to work with what we can. We have to start rebuilding our awareness, and we have to take this down a lot more than you're probably used to, and a lot more than you're going to be comfortable with, because this type of person likes to change everything all at once. And when it can't be done that way, they think that it's if you dial it back, if you focus on more smaller steps, quote unquote smaller steps, then it's not good enough. Then they're not going to see the results fast enough. But if the alternative is they don't do anything at all, well, then we're guaranteeing that we're not going to see any change. We're guaranteeing that it's going to stay the same. And when we're not willing to try something different, to slow things down, to make adjustments to accommodate for the crazy stress that we have in our life, if we're not willing to do those things, we're not going to make any progress, and it's only going to become the same song and dance over and over and over again. We're not consistent with our food. We're not making the time for workouts, and our life is constantly reminding us how much we don't control. And now we're going to continue to feel bad about ourselves. And now we're arguing with ourselves where we say we want something, but we don't change anything. And this is why I wanted to say you're either in or you're out, because I want you to accept. I want you to accept it. That sucks. That sucks. That's horrible. It's horrible to feel like you're accepting that you can't do as much as you can, or accepting. It almost feels like you're accepting defeat when you accept that I can't do as much as I want to, or I'm just not willing to make the change, at least right now. It can feel very, very difficult to do those things. But if we don't accept it, if we don't accept what we can and can't control, or what we can and cannot do, we're going to continue to feel worse. We're going to not be consistent. We're going to not see results, and we're going to constantly feel shitty about it throughout the entire process. We're just adding more fuel to the fire, where we can take a little bit of that load, that temporary discomfort of accepting that I'm not willing to make the change right now. Like, that's a small discomfort. We're scared of what could happen if we stop focusing on it, stop beating ourselves up of it. But if we just accept, I'm not willing to do as much as I think I should, that opens the possibility that you may be able to do a little bit more than you thought you would. Now, I know that may not quite make sense, but if you have this idea that it's supposed to look a certain way, and you do not have the time to accommodate every single thing to that idea, then it's not fair to you to constantly hold that standard to yourself. It's not, because all it's doing is showing you everything that you can't do. So if we say, okay, accept that I don't have the time. I honestly don't have the commitment with as much stress and frustration that's going on in my life. I don't have the commitment to dedicate that much time to doing what I think has to get done. If we don't accept that, it's always going to feel miserable. But right after we accept it and say, okay, I can't, or I won't do what I think I have to do, now we let go of that. Now we let go of that idea, that standard that just isn't helping us to begin with. And now we have to think differently now, because we've accepted that we no longer need to beat ourselves up because we can't do what we think we should be able to do. So now our brain has to think in different ways. We don't give it the excuse that you should be able to do more, you could be doing better, you're not doing enough, whatever it is. When we accept that, we shut off that lever. Now our brain has to think, okay, well, since I'm not beating myself up anymore, what am I supposed to do now? Because accepting that you can't do as much as you want to doesn't mean you're admitting to failure. Accepting is just saying, I can't do what I think I'm supposed to do. So going back to that client who I've tried doing this with her. I've tried pulling her back and saying, we need to focus on something incredibly simple for you to get out of this situation. Because if we don't get out of this situation, it's only going to continue to be worse. And in her mind, it has never quite felt like it's not good enough. It's like, that's not going to do enough for me. Well, if you want something to change, you have to do something differently. And no matter how much I've brought this up with her, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for her to accept that she has to do something small or manageable. I don't like using the word small because these are fundamental or even monumental lessons that we have to learn, that we don't control as much as we want to. And just because we want to change our body doesn't mean we are able to. We don't have as much control. So we need to learn and to control what we can control. And this is what leads to sustainable change, because once we accept that we can control a finite amount of stuff, well, and then we only focus on that and let everything that we can't control just put it out, don't let it be the focus, right? I don't want people to go through hardships, but it's life happens. We just need to say, okay, I can't do anything about that. I can't take care of it to the way that I want to. So now we shift the focus to, okay, if I can't do anything about those things that are super stressful, then I'm going to focus on drinking a little bit more water. I'm going to focus on moving my body a little bit more. Now we take the pressure, the stress, and the shitty feelings. We take the pressure off of us with those things. And we take a tough situation, make it a little bit more bearable. And now we find something to focus on that's going to make us feel a little bit better. You're either in or you're out. You're either in on accepting that the process that you think is supposed to go is not going to go the way that you would like it to, or you think it has to go. So now you're in on trying a different way that may be more manageable. Yes, you may be doing less, but if the alternative is nothing, this path is always better than something. You're either in or you're out, where you don't have the capability to even want to try those things. And you just want to accept that this is a hard time right now and you don't have the bandwidth. I want you to be in, or I want you to be out, and I want you to claim it and own it, because then you have no reason to have this inner turmoil or battle with yourself. You have no reason to tear yourself down. You have no reason to feel like you're going against yourself. You're not wrong. But this is a possibility. This is a possible way to help you lean more towards more towards saying that you're in, because you're letting go of the shit that just is not working for you, is not helping you. It's just reminding you of everything that makes you feel shitty. Or if you accept that and you realize that you've only been chasing this for the idea of how someone else is going to look at you or how other people are going to look at you, and this isn't even for you, well, then give yourself a break and stop chasing something that isn't even something that you want. But we can't do that when we're always distracted and tearing ourselves down on everything that we're not doing. Get clear. Why does this even matter to you? And are you in a way that will actually probably help you better in the long run because what you're trying to do isn't helping? Or are you out because you genuinely don't care as much as you thought you did, because you never actually gave yourself the time to process these thoughts and ask yourself these questions? The toughest part about my job is wanting it more than my clients. I want them to have what they say they want, but if deep down they don't want it, they're comfortable being uncomfortable, I want them to one, save their money and give themselves a break to just deal with it however they want to deal with. And then maybe that time where they spend more uncomfortable and they just accept the situation that they're in, this discomfort. Now they're going to have more reminders. Well, this isn't helping anyway. This isn't helping me feel any better. So maybe down the road, maybe it's not with me, or maybe it's not with me, but maybe they find someone who's more ideal for them and they're in a much better headspace to actually make the steps that are appropriate for them. But you have to be abundantly clear if you're in or if you're out. And it's going to take how long it needs to take. no matter what you do, no matter how much money you invest, no matter how much time you invest, it's going to take however long it needs to take for you to truly learn the lessons. Because the worst thing is people getting temporary results that are gone within 3 months because they didn't actually learn how to process. They didn't actually learn how to take care of themselves. They didn't actually learn how to think the way that they needed to see the results that they wanted, because they were always going from thing to thing in their head of it has to be this certain way, it has to be good enough, they never accepted what they could control. They never accepted what they wanted. They were never truly in, and they were just chasing an idea. And once that idea isn't fulfilled because they didn't actually address what they wanted, it's just an inevitability before they lose the results. And now it's a miserable time because, and trust me, I've been there. I say this not only as a coach but also as a person who always felt super insecure and like he'd never be good enough. And then he attached all of his issues into his sport. He loses his sport. Now he's this empty shell of a person. Now he's trying to find another way to cope with his insecurity. So he ties it all into his physical appearance, and he loses 40 pounds. He gets down to 8% body fat, looks great, but in his head he looks like trash. He still has body fat that he's burn off. He still doesn't feel any better. It's not a fun existence because I was never fully in. I kept chasing and filling insecurities with these external things. It wasn't until I truly understand what I was in on for myself that it took me a while. It took me a while that to realize that nothing external actually helped me feel better. I had to work on my internal. I had to look on the way that I looked at myself and looked at everything I did to remind myself that I can still make progress even in the smallest way. And that can be okay. Things don't have to work out the way that I think they're supposed to. And once you're on the other side, you're not impervious to still having these thoughts and beliefs. You just get better at catching it. You get better at identifying what you're in on and what you're out on. And once you do this for yourself, it applies to every other aspect of your life. You're much more able to quickly identify the people you want to be around. You're in on these people and you're out on these people. The relationships you want, you're in on this relationship, you're out on this relationship. The boundaries, the standards you hold for yourself, you're in on these boundaries, you're out on these boundaries or people, or whatever it is. It's a fundamental skill that we all need. And I wanted to share this with you as a reminder. Like, I can't help someone who doesn't truly want to be helped. And I want you to think deep down, do you want what you say you want? Are you in or are you out? And once you answer that question, you're going to make your life a lot easier because either way, you're not wrong. Just stop running from it. Stop fighting yourself and just get abundantly clear. And whichever decision you come to, well, then go in all on that decision and know that it's yours. And eventually it may lead you to where you want to go, just not in the path that you thought it was supposed to go. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Um, and I'm gonna stop talking. If I helped you in any way, if I helped shift your perspective, if I helped put your head back on straight or anything, or if you feel like someone may need to hear this, I would greatly appreciate if you take a little moment to share this with somebody, with at least one person, because my entire reason for doing this is to help you no matter where you're at. And even if I help you in a small way, well, I appreciate you. If you completely disagree with me, that's okay. You have every right to disagree with me. You're an individual. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today. And yeah, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. All my social media is in the link down below. And I'll see you on the next one.